The views and opinions expressed here on Wrestling Winedown are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. What's up, guys? It's Lo, and you are tuned in to Wrestling Winedown, a female-founded and hosted podcast dedicated to professional wrestling and our favorite adult beverage. We are back with another episode of Chardonnay and Chisme, your wrestling girl talk. As always, I am joined by Iridian of the Rest Friends podcast, as well as the Fightful AEW Collision After Show to talk all things pro wrestling. Former AEW TBS champion Jade Cargill is now a WWE superstar. We are spilling the wine on Jade's impact in AEW and if we feel like the company utilized her properly. We're also talking about who we would like to see Jade feud with first in the WWE and why it is so important that we don't rush the eventual Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair match. It's official. WWE and UFC have officially merged, which brings up an interesting question. Can UFC fans become WWE fans and vice versa? We're sounding off on this question, as well as where Ronda Rousey ties into this. And finally, Colorado definitely smelled what The Rock was cooking when he returned to WWE Smackdown on a recent episode. We are chatting about the pop that The Rock received in Colorado, as well as the missing element of surprise in professional wrestling nowadays. So grab your favorite glass of bubbly. We're going in for the 3 count. We are back with another episode of Chardonnay and Chisme. Honestly, I feel like that's just it. Every time we get on here, we sing. Oh, she has a little agua fresca. I have water because margaritas will come later. Margarita Mommy might make a little appearance tonight, okay?
Not the appearance.
A little appearance.
I'm here for it.
There's been so much happening wrestling-wise, but before we get into anything, I was in Chicago for All Out. It feels like I was there 7 years ago, but it was literally this month or the beginning of this month.
It literally feels like such a long time. And even before that, you were here like 2 weeks prior for Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
So
because we do have interests other than wrestling. We like to go outside, touch grass, maybe go to Target, maybe go to a festival or two. I do advise to do that because the wrestling online sphere can be very toxic.
And sometimes sometimes a change of scenery is absolutely necessary.
Yes. All right, let's dive right in. Jade Cargill. As we know, Jade was a part of AEW, and she had her last match in AEW against Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. As we know, Jade lost the TBS Championship to Chris at Double or Nothing this year, and it has been revealed that Jade Cargill is no longer a part of the AEW roster and that she is WWE bound. We read earlier this week there were reports that she was already in Florida at the Performance Center, and then we saw some reports that said, never mind, she's not. Let's talk about Jade jumping ship. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, I think that there are pros and cons to this, in my opinion. I do think that Jade is a star, that she's fantastic. She's got the look. She is superstar quality, right? So I do think that she will benefit from the bigger audience, the more mainstream that WWE has, more faces in their audience. So people will know who Jade is, right? And she will get that shine. I feel like these endorsements will come in. I feel like there's just a lot of positives that could happen with Jade coming to WWE. I'm a little sad that AEW is losing her because I feel like the run that she had with that championship was not the best, but I feel like she was just so strong, right? She was so dominant in that division, and I feel like she really brought something to AEW when she was in that division. It was just kind of a surprise. And they brought her back and we were super excited. We're like, oh my goodness, Jade is here. We have been waiting. Like, where has she been? She's been in French Montana's videos and now she is back to wrestling. So that literally lasted a week before the rumors spread about her going to WWE. So I feel like I'm also kind of in the middle of, I'm happy for her. I'm excited to see her continue to wrestle, but I'm also kind of sad that she's not in AEW anymore because I feel like she's homegrown talent, right? And now she is jumping ship. So that's where I stand. What are your thoughts on Jade?
Back in the day, before AEW was around, I'm sure a lot of people might know this. Some people might not. Jade Cargill did have a audition with WWE, and she did not get signed. And then obviously went to AEW. She strengthened her talent in regards to in-ring work, promo work, etc. Bryan Danielson was a huge part of that. We saw it spotlighted in multiple videos and multiple aspects of the company. And it was also mentioned online as well. And I think she even mentioned in an article that she had come out. But I liked seeing Jade in AEW. I feel like representation is so important. And that was one thing for a long time. And even today, the AEW is not the best on. I feel like there are talents, of different races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, but there are still things where it's kind of like they could do better there. Now, I know we have Willow, we have Athena, we have Kiera Hogan. We have other individuals who are of color. Like, don't get me wrong, but I feel like having Jade in that forefront was something that we hadn't really seen before within AEW. We had Nyla Rose as champion. We had Athena. We still have Athena as Ring of Honor champion. And that's great, right? But Jade, a homegrown talent, being in that spotlight meant so much. But I feel like they started her out as this strong woman who got in the ring, kicked ass, and then slowly along the way, it was like, oh, we actually have to keep booking her like that. So how do we do that? And it's like she had this long win record. But like the matches she was having, it was like, okay, it wasn't anything spectacular, right? She had a couple really good matches, but along the way, it was like, it kind of seemed like they just wanted to build that record up. So they were just plugging her in anywhere. And we saw her go against like Taya. We saw her go up against Anna Jay. We saw her go up against these different competitors along her reign. But honestly, and I agree with the people that said, one of her best matches was the last one she had with Chris Statlander. Her last match, it was a great match. And it's unfortunate that her best match was her last match in AEW. Now, who knows? She might return. Tony Khan mentioned great words about her last week in an interview and said she's welcome to come back to AEW anytime. She's a great competitor, etc. So obviously she left on the right foot. But to be completely honest, I didn't see this coming. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming because we saw her kind of start getting intertwined with AEW again. She was at the AEW Together events. She was out with other AEW wrestlers, and we're kind of like, oh, maybe she's coming back. Like they're utilizing her for something other than wrestling. And then for her to come back, have one match and leave, who would have expected that? While I do think that she had her good moments in AEW, I do not feel like she was utilized to her full potential. I feel like there could have been a better way to portray her as a strong woman that she is instead of doing the long win streak with matches that at the end of the day didn't really matter because I can't even recall half of them. And I feel like Jade has enough star potential that they could have been using her in sponsorships. They could have been using her in other aspects, and they weren't. So I feel like now seeing her go to WWE, I feel like this opens so many new doors. We've seen that she's very passionate about her sorority. That might be a partnership that they can get involved with. There's so many other aspects within Jade, acting, modeling. She's been in music videos. Like she has the full package. And I feel like WWE might know how to utilize her better. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we want to see her versus Bianca. We want to see her do this. We want to see her do that. And there has been rumors that she might stay in NXT a little bit, but she will jump to the main roster pretty soon. And I am excited for that, but I also don't want it to be like it was in AEW where they put her in this position where they don't know how to book her. I want her to have a clear path. And I saw reports as well that said, hey, they already have creative going for her. Great. Keep it up, because you can create one part of creative and then 3 months from now be like, what should we do with her? And it's like, what do you mean? What should you do with her? It's Jade Cargill. Like, I'm clearly a Jade stan. I appreciate seeing a woman that looks like me, that looks like my mother, that looks like my family in the ring, and I want her to be utilized properly. At the end of the day, that's all I care about. She could have gone to Impact. She could have gone to New Japan. She could have gone anywhere. The one thing that I want, other than her to be happy in her contract, is I want her to be utilized properly. That's all I want.
And I feel like with WWE and AEW, a lot of these wrestling companies with their women's division, it's kind of lost where the women have their stories. And, you know, we kind of see it happening right now in AEW with Saraya. She's the champion. But what can you say about her besides that she's a champion? I feel like Toni Storm has a story and it's picking up on that end, but that's something new, right? I don't think they expected Tony's character to be this successful. And with a lot of the women, it's just like it kind of gets left as an afterthought. Not only are we just having one match for them per show, but it's like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. And some
And
of
in the same time slot every single time.
Exactly. And with WWE, there's been women like Natty who have been dominant, who have been workhorses, and they can work, they connect with the audience, and they don't get TV time. They're just kind of left in the background. So with the storylines that these women have, it's going to be interesting what they do with Jade, because we know what Jade is capable of. We know that she's got such a marketability about her that she can really do whatever. We see it with Bianca. Bianca's at all the red carpets and she really sells the company well. And I feel like Jade could also do that, but you also need to put her in a position where she is being showcased in the ring to be able to do that.
Something that just came to mind that I would think would be really interesting to see within Jade's run in the WWE is having her involved with Natty. Natty has trained a lot of other women's wrestlers in that type of training area. I'm not sure if it's the Heart Dungeon or if it's at her house or whatever, but we've seen pictures of her and like Liv Morgan and Lana and other women, Nia Jax, in the ring training. And I feel like that would be an interesting aspect to kind of add into a storyline. Like Jade gets to WWE, she wants to train with someone. Maybe she trains with Natty. She sees Natty's history, her lineage as a third generation wrestler, and she thinks, you know what, I'm going to train with her. And then it turns into a storyline, like a trainer versus student type of thing. We know Natty can go. Natty would be a great first competitor for Jade. I know people are like, we need her versus Bianca. We need her versus Rhea. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they go in the ring, they're strong. But I don't think we need to go with the obvious. We don't need to put her with Bianca immediately when she gets there. I feel like we can build up to that. And I think Natty would be the perfect person to help her build up. We knew she was training in AEW with Bryan Danielson. Okay, now she's in WWE. Who's training her now? Yeah, okay, maybe they have trainers on the side, but for storyline purposes, why not have Natty involved? We see Natty knows what she's doing. She can work. She's reliable. She's dependable. Why not?
Why not? And that's the question.
Why not? Why not? I clearly need to go watch the Lizzie McGuire movie. Is there anyone other than like Bianca, Rhea Ripley? I've even seen Nia Jax's name thrown around. Is there anyone within WWE currently that you would like to see Jade go up against?
Yeah, definitely people in NXT. Miss Tiffany Stratton, she's catching my eye. I'm like, all right, girl, you're putting in the work. She is got some of the most beautiful moves. Like her execution is really on point, and she's also great on social media. I feel like they could really play up on the fact that like, all right, these are two stars, these are two influencers, these are women who have the beauty, who have the body, they have the look, and they could really go. And like you said, I definitely agree that we don't need to get those big matches right off the gate. And this is again where storytelling comes in, because all right, we get Bianca and Jade, and then what happened? Like, let's say they give Bianca the win. Now what are we doing? What's the story in that? We need to really build that foundation where Jade can go up against anybody. And I would hope that they do it with Rhea first, but these intergender matches, who, like, I feel like Jade could literally fight anybody. She literally could fight anybody. Give me Jade versus, I don't know, what guy are we even seeing? I'm not even thinking about the women anymore. I'm thinking about the men. Who's she going to fight? There's so many options. There's so many options. And
I feel like she could throw Finn Balor somewhere.
Finn Balor, Judgment Day. I was going to say Dominic.
Yeah,
like,
I was thinking that too.
There could be a feud because, Rhea's in that group.
Don't pick on my mommy.
Because Rhea's in the group. So there could be so much. But yes, Tiffany, I would definitely see. Natty, absolutely. I feel like Natty does not get enough TV time. Justice for Natty, TBH. That's moral of that. Yeah, but those two names pop up.
Before we wrap this segment up, I really just want to just hone in on something you just said. They don't have to do Bianca versus Jade immediately. And I think for me as a Black woman who watches wrestling, it is so important that we get this right, because we don't see a lot of Black women go up against each other in the WWE. We know that Jazz and Jacqueline faced off years ago, but we haven't had a strong feud between two Black women other than Sasha and Bianca years ago. We haven't had that recently. And it is because WWE does lack diversity on their main roster at the end of the day. Obviously, in NXT, they have way more Black women. And I absolutely love to see it. Lash Legend, Jakara, they're doing great. And there's others there too. But on the main roster, you have Bianca holding it down. And it's like, this is so important. This can either go really good or it can go really bad. If they rush it and up, I feel like a lot of fans, especially women of color, Black women, they're going to be like, why did they up? They could have easily told that story forever. You know what I mean? Not forever, but like a long duration of time. Or they can get it really right, tell that story and build it up for a WrestleMania night 1 or night 2 or a big 4 pay-per-view. They really have to do it right. And I feel like WWE, a lot of the time, they don't do it right. And I'm like, please, if you do one thing right, please get this Bianca versus Jade storyline right. Like, I will pray, I will manifest, I will host the prayer circle at my house, and I will have wine. Just make sure you get this Bianca and Jade storyline right when it is time. You don't have to rush it. There is no rush. Okay. Yeah. Patience is key. And I feel like the fans also need to think of that as well. Like, I feel like fans are so gung ho, like, we need Bianca versus Jade right now. No, you don't. You need to relax. You need to take a deep breath. You need to calm down, because if they rush this, I'm going to be so pissed. Like, you will be prepared to be sick of me on that timeline.
And we have such high expectations because we know that the women can do it. And I don't want to be disappointed at the end of the day, because I'm like, damn, you really messed that up. And I know that Jade is disappointed, and I know that Bianca's disappointed. Like, it's going to be the biggest fumble if they up.
I am going to have hope that they won't. I am going to think positively. Glass half full that they will get this right. But if they don't, we ride it on to Titan Towers or wherever they're at now, since they have merged. Let's talk about that a little bit. We know that WWE and UFC have merged together. This is very recent. We've seen a lot of layoffs. We saw a lot of layoffs in the corporate side of WWE, but we also saw some layoffs in the talent. We saw Matt Riddle got released. We saw that Top Dollar got released, Riddick Moss, Emma, Dana Brooke, and etc. A whole plethora of superstars, both on the main roster and in NXT, got released. Another one was Mustafa Ali, which I don't really like that. I hate it, actually, because they fumbled extremely badly with him. But they've merged, right? And a lot of people are asking, what is this going to look like for the future of WWE? You know, we've seen that there's superstars that have been let go. There's been the corporate side of people they've let go. What can we anticipate from WWE next? Like, I read an article actually where someone involved with Endeavor had made a comment about they want to convert UFC fans to WWE fans and vice versa. And then Dana White, who is the president of UFC, said that was stupid. That is absolutely not going to happen. Yeah. For you, Iridian, do you think that you can convert a UFC fan to a WWE fan and vice versa?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I think there's just always going to be that divider of like, oh, but one is fake and the other one is real. We literally just saw Jon Moxley get a concussion the other day. Like, you cannot tell me that it's fake. Adam Cole was walking out in crutches. Like, what are we doing? And I just think that people are so honed in on their beliefs. I feel like it might be easier to convert a wrestling fan into a fan of the UFC rather than try to do the opposite. But at this point, like, I think we have to just agree that, like, people will watch what they'll watch and we'll call it a day. I don't think that necessarily because this merger happened that the audiences are going to kind of go watch one thing and then also watch the other thing under that umbrella. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. What do you think?
I agree too. I think UFC and MMA fans, they ride hard. They are very into combat sports. They like violence, you know what I mean? And I feel like professional wrestling is not their jazz because it is more theatrical. Wrestling is not like MMA or UFC. Like, it is very much different. But I do notice that, you know, sometimes when I tell people I watch professional wrestling, they'll be like, oh, well, do you watch UFC? Do you watch MMA? And I'm like, no. And they're kind of confused. And it's like, they're two separate things. I've tried to watch UFC. I've tried to watch MMA. I don't really like it.
It's not fun for me.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I need some Chisme. I got the Chardonnay. Y'all need to bring the Chisme. Yeah. I mean, I know that UFC has had some like little shows here and there, like a reality-based type of show where they show the fighting, and I forgot what it's called. Maybe somebody can educate us on that and that only. But I feel like maybe that was kind of their way of like trying to be kind of like professional wrestling because they're adding like that layer. But like, I don't even think that show comes on anymore. I don't watch it. I don't care to watch it. But I think it would be extremely hard to convert a UFC fan to a WWE fan just because they're used to that real raw combat. They're not used to how professional wrestling is. It's two different things. And I feel like, again, UFC fans, MMA fans, they go hard. And wrestling fans go hard too, to an extent. So I feel like there is enough room in both lanes to just watch what you want to watch, right? And yeah, the companies have merged, and I'm sure we might see some overlap. We might see a UFC fighter come to WWE, maybe do an appearance. We might see a WWE superstar do an appearance at UFC. We've seen wrestlers at these fights. I know Rey Mysterio has been to some, Logan Paul, Triple H, like they've gone to the fights, but they've never been in, you know, like an active part or like a referee, etc. I don't know, a guest star. But like two lanes. And I think the two lanes have to be separated because, girl, wrestling Twitter cannot take no more if you get these MMA people on there. And I don't even know if MMA has a little side of Twitter, a little pocket of Twitter. I don't know. But I feel like they might be a little bit more rowdy than the IWC. And that's very hard to believe.
Very, very hard to believe that anybody could top wrestling Twitter.
Right. I feel like they don't have as good of memes, though. So.
Oh, absolutely.
No.
And something else about the UFC and just WWE fans. Yeah, it's never happening. It's absolutely never happening.
Well, I mean, you think about Ronda Rousey, and I know you're not a fan of Ronda, but
I hate Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, Ronda was in that UFC, that MMA lifestyle, and then she transitioned to a wrestler. And I've always wondered what the crossover with that was. Was there a lot of people who followed her MMA career who was like, you know what? Ronda's in WWE. I guess I'll watch WWE. It would be very interesting to have like a sit down conversation with a diehard MMA UFC fan who really loved Ronda Rousey in that aspect of her career and then watched her in professional wrestling and kind of see what their thoughts were. Because you've watched this woman for years be dominant in this one place and then she goes over to another place. And yeah, Ronda's had her successes, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people just did not like Ronda Rousey. I felt like they felt like she was intruding on the sport of professional wrestling. She was rough. She's rugged. She doing her thing. I'll just say that. And I feel like it rubbed a lot of wrestling fans the wrong way. But I wonder how UFC MMA fans feel about it because that's what they're used to seeing. They're used to seeing Ronda be rough like that.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting that you brought up Ronda because one of my ex-coworkers, she was a huge fan of Ronda Rousey, not specifically in the UFC, but in her movies. She liked when Ronda would pop up in movies and she's like, oh my God, now I'm super excited to see her in WWE. But I feel like that would have been an easier transition because, you know, both on screen like that, playing a role. Yeah. But it's interesting to see what those numbers would be. Because, you know, like when the Bellas were doing Total Divas, Total Bellas, they really brought a lot of women into watching wrestling. So those numbers are there. So I wonder what the numbers would be for someone like Ronda Rousey, even someone like Shayna Baszler, even Logan Paul, just to come in and kind of do that for the little run that he had.
Someone run us the numbers. I know somebody has them. Just run it to us. We just want to look for research purposes.
Just send the link.
Another set of numbers that I would like to see is the Rock surprise appearance at WWE Smackdown in Colorado recently. I feel like that is one hell of a place to come back. Not a Vegas, not a LA, not a New York, not a Philly. Colorado.
Yeah. Very random.
So it's very interesting because I had seen Sean Ross Sapp tweet earlier in the day that a employee had told him that The Rock was going to show up on SmackDown, but it was not confirmed, right? It was just the employee running his mouth. I wonder if he got fired. That's a side thing. So when The Rock actually showed up, I think everyone was just shocked. The pop in that venue was so loud. And WWE's censor team definitely got a raise that night because they had to censor so much within that little segment. First of all, I want to know why The Rock came back in Colorado. Secondly, I want to know, is The Rock scared of Roman Reigns? Roman wasn't there that night, and The Rock decides to show up. Rock, we have been waiting for 82 years for you to return to WWE. We thought you were going to face Roman last year at Mania. You didn't. You said you had other things to do. When is it coming? Do you think that we can expect to see a Roman Reigns versus The Rock match at WrestleMania in Philly?
I want to say in WrestleMania, yes. Maybe not in Philly. I feel like they have the story there, right?
Right.
But man, the way the bloodline is going right now, I feel like that train, you missed a stop. Now you just go in and do whatever's next. And people are really questioning like, okay, well, if it's The Rock and Roman, where does Cody Rhodes fit in there? Because I have been asking that question for a year, okay? Probably a little bit over a year. Oh my God. If you're a Cody fan right now, I'm so sorry. It's got to be so tough. But man, The Rock coming out. First, I wasn't even going to watch Smackdown, right? And then you get on Twitter and like there's all the rumors. Hey, he was on Pat McAfee's show. Maybe Pat McAfee's also going to be there. They're only an hour away. And I was like, oh man, all right. So it's 7 o'clock's almost pulling up. And I'm like, all right, let me just turn it on and see what happens. First person comes out, Pat McAfee. And I was like, oh man, Pat McAfee, here we go. He hasn't been on TV in forever. And you and I are huge fans of Pat McAfee. He really won us over. So I was just super excited to see him. And Austin Theory comes out and Pat McAfee starts talking about like, this isn't your show. This is the people's show. And I was like, he's coming out. The Rock is coming out. There's no way that The Rock is not coming out. And like Pat McAfee said like one more sentence and Rock's music hits and the people are losing their minds. There are grown men in the audience jumping up and down. Not even the kids are that excited to see The Rock, okay? People immediately—
They grew up with The Rock.
Yes, you see people immediately like getting their phones and they're like, oh my God, it's The Rock. Oh my God, what's happening? And I was so excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, finally, what's he gonna say? What are we gonna get? Like, who else is gonna come out? Like, finally, some answers. I thought we were gonna get answers. We didn't really get any answers.
Yeah.
But the pop was so loud. And I think The Rock even said something about this on Twitter that, you know, the audience might have only been like 10,000 or like something around there, but it felt like there was 100,000 people in that arena. And it sure sounded like it.
It brings me back to a tweet that I put up recently about missing the element of surprise in wrestling. And I mentioned it in regards to Jade. And some people agree with me. I had a couple people that were like, well, they only mentioned her signing details. And I was like, that's still too much. So for me, I feel like this element of surprise was 100% there for The Rock. No one expected The Rock to come back. Yeah, this Pat McAfee employee might have said something, but no one was like 100% The Rock is going to be at Smackdown in Colorado. No one would have thought that. And that element of surprise is probably why the pop was so loud. I mean, yeah, the pop probably would have been loud regardless, but the fact that they weren't expecting it, there's nothing like it.
There is absolutely nothing like it. And I feel like this is something that WWE really needs to get back to doing, is just honest surprises. Because even like some Monday Night Raws that I was at when Trish and Lita were first making their reappearances, they were like, oh, tonight, Trish Stratus. I was like, come on. Can we not have anything? Like, I would have been in tears.
You hear that laugh?
If I heard the laugh, I would have been like, oh my God, Trish is here. This is everything. But I knew she was going to be there. So that kind of ruined it.
Right.
One good example of a surprise was when we went to Mania and we didn't know which night Stone Cold was going to come out. And he came out both nights. Like, that is a surprise, you know?
Yes.
Triple H coming out. That is a surprise where you're like, oh my goodness. And it's just something about the way that that's captured now for everyone to see. But it's literally the most amazing feeling when you're there. And even watching it back, like, I'm sure people got goosebumps watching it at home, even when The Rock was there. But surprises are not, they're not performed as much as they should be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, like, could you imagine, and I said this in the tweet, could you imagine Jade just coming out on a random Monday Night Raw? Now, I know we got Nia Jax recently as a surprise, right? And like, great, that's nice. But like, Nia Jax is not Jade Cargill.
Exactly. Jumping from one company to another. The second employee from AEW to do, well, I could say third because Brandy, right?
Right.
But literally that would have been front page on everything. And mind you, it was like front page on social media.
But it's like we have not seen her. It would have been like
great
if it would have flew under the radar and no one would have known that her contract ended, that she was done with AEW and WWE bound, and she just showed up. Like, could you imagine
if she just came out at the Rumble? That would, oh my God, literally Jade at the Rumble is what I would have been waiting for. I was thinking about
God,
Jade at the Rumble and Randy Orton at the Rumble, because also that surprise was ruined, right? When people are like, Randy Orton's at the Performance Center, I was like, screw this, okay?
First of all, why are you at the Performance Center? It's a Wednesday. They are not filming NXT.
Exactly, sir. You don't even know what day it is. Wrong. Like,
yeah. I miss it. And I think that's why the Royal Rumble is so exciting to us, is because there are those elements of surprise. But last year when we went, honestly, there weren't a lot of surprises. Like, they utilized most of the women on the roster. They the surprise with Nia Jax at the end, which we were kind of like, oh, how did this air on TV? But other than that, we didn't really see the legends involved. And I think that's what excites us too, is because it's like, okay, which legends are coming back? We know some are coming back, but which ones? And I felt like last year didn't feel like how the previous years felt for the Women's Royal Rumble, in my opinion. It didn't hit the same. So I hope this year, which they did announce that the Royal Rumble will be in Florida, I hope that they are able to really hone in on that element of surprise and put some people in there, Jazz, that we want to see, that we have not seen in a long time. That girl, I'm telling you, remember when Victoria came back?
Oh my God.
Tears.
Amazing.
If Jazz
you
came
can't
back,
tell me exactly. You can't tell me that they can't pay Gail Kim accordingly for one night. Like, Mickie James was there as a champion.
Thank you. I have questions. Whoever's booking the Royal Rumble in Florida, please call me. I have requests, concerns, questions. I need answers. Suggestions. Feedback.
I feel like you need for the Rumble like 5 spots for sure for legends. You need 5 spots for SmackDown, Raw, NXT, and then those other 5 could be literally anybody. Like, how many people are in the? There's only 25. You still have another 5 people. Like, there's literally everybody. And I get it with the women. Their roster is very limited. There aren't that many legends that you can go back to, but you can't tell me that Tori Wilson can't come back. You can't tell me that Eve can't come back.
I can name 20 people on right now who they could come back. You want me? Michelle, Layla, Maurice. If Maurice came, oh my God, if Maurice came back in the Rumble, I would be on the floor. Okay? Floor.
Yes. But in compared to the men's roster over the years.
You're very right. Yes.
So when it comes to that, I get it, but also you can use your women. Like I feel like you could bring back the Bella Twins every year. I'd be like ecstatic.
Well, I don't know. I feel like the whole Bella Twin situation, I feel like there's a lot more to it than we know at this point.
Absolutely, because they're the Garcia twins now.
The Garcia twins. No mention of WWE.
I need to know what happened there.
I feel like if anyone could get the Chisme, we could get the Chisme. We need to know. Nikki, Bree, hit us up.
And like Bree, as an honorary member of the Blackpool Combat Club by no one awarded me that. I awarded that myself. I feel like I am qualified. So please.
Let's talk about merch. I have some of our merch on right now. This is the Bad Bitches Love Wrestling shirt. But I must say, I am very thankful. I'm very appreciative to everybody that buys our merch. Obviously, Iridian is a part of Wrestling Winedown, but I mostly do all of the work. And I know a lot.
Hold on. We're going to pause right here because Lo literally does everything. She creates all of the pieces. My job is she runs things by me and I'll be like, okay, looks good. But she literally does everything. So when people get on Twitter and it's like, oh, you guys did so well. I'm like, you mean Lo? Because Lo literally does so well all the time. And I admire you for all of your hard work. I admire your grammar skills, your creativity. You are just fantastic, amazing. And I am so happy to see that everyone is loving the merch. Absolutely.
Yes. I wanted to say very much thank you to the people that, support the merch, whether they're buying one shirt, whether they're buying 3, whether they're buying every single time we drop something. I've been very happy to see the results of how we've been doing our collection so far. Our latest 3. We dropped 3 collections in 1 week, which is absolutely insane. I've never done something like that. We actually produced one of them, the 1-800 Wrestling. It was both of us in the shots. But then we had our Roman Reigns, our Bad Bitches for Roman Reigns shirt came back. And then we just launched a new one, Bad Bitches for Eddie Kingston. And holy people love Eddie Kingston. Like, I knew the girlies rode for him, but girl, they ride till dawn for him. You hear me? I'm like, oh my God. So I'm very much appreciative to everybody that has bought that shirt as well as any of our others. I make all the designs myself. I conceptualize the designs. I think about it. I do it. I produce it. I set up the models. I do everything in that regard and everything else for Wrestling Winedown. Wrestling Winedown is legitimately my baby at this point. And
it's literally Lo.
It's literally me. And every time I see someone in a piece of merch, whether we're out, whether they post on social media, it truly means so much. And I know there was a moment in Chicago where I ran into a couple people that had the shirts on, and my heart was just so warm. Like, my heart has never been that warm before. I felt like I was going to cry. It means so much. I can get on here and I can say, oh my God, it means so much. But truly, it means so much that this merch that I like, others like. And I've said it all along, my goal is to make merch that women can wear, because we see these wrestling websites and they have merch for men. Like, it's not for the women. So
it's all ugly. It's all ugly.
Whoa. Coming in hot.
Because wrestling merch is made for men. It's not made for women. So it's nice that a woman is making merch for us.
Yes.
It makes sense.
And I know people were a little bit thrown off. They're kind of like, oh, I'm a man. I had a man tweet me. He was very nice. He was like, I'm a man. I love Eddie Kingston. I want the bad bitches shirt. Like, can I be a bad bitch? And I was like, you know what? That is so nice. Of course you can. So I know I put out there for the girlies, by the girlies, but literally these shirts are for anybody. You might not like what they're producing on the main websites, but I got you. I got you.
There is no gender when it comes to a bad bitch. Okay.
Amen.
If you are a bad bitch, you are a bad bitch.
Period. And with that, thank you so much, Iridian, for joining me for another episode of Chardonnay and Chisme. Where can the people keep up with you on social media, as well as where is that Fightful post show for Collision at?
So I just uploaded a video on our YouTube at Rest Friends. That's WREST Friends. And it's an unboxing of a Wheeler Yuta Blood and Guts ringside collectibles figure that I ordered literally when I was in Vegas for Double or Nothing. And it's finally here. Months later, literal months later. So I was super excited to unbox that, and that's on the YouTube channel. And you can also listen to the Rest Friends podcast anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. And every Saturday on Fightful on our YouTube channel, on our Twitter and Facebook, we are going live right after the Collision show, and that's the post show with me, Rick, and Cresta.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wrestling Winedown. You can find all of our other episodes available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. We are on Twitter and Instagram at WWDCAST. We also have our official merch store, which you can find at shop.wrestlingwinedownlv.com. Let us know what you thought about this episode. What was your favorite part? Until next time, enjoy your wine and, of course, enjoy your wrestling. Cheers!